Hello, loyal listeners, and welcome to this edition of the SOS-radio.com podcast. I'm your host, Jason Knight, and I'm here with my fellow SOSers and brothers in arms. SOS co-founder, theorist, and clairsensitive, Mr. Dave Black.
Hi.
You're so sensitive, Dave.
Thank you.
I'm also here with my producer extraordinaire, Mr. Oscar Spector.
Mr.
How are you, Oscar? Oscar? How are you?
Don't hurt yourself. I'm good. How are you, man?
Are you warm this evening?
Motherfuck, no.
Oh, we're swearing now.
No,
Okay.
cut that out. No, I'm not.
We're also joined by some special guests today. Mr. Erie, Joe Erie, is not with us this evening. He's in Mexico doing spooky things in your land, Oscar, actually.
In my land.
In Mexico.
I own
That's
that
right.
land.
So Joe Erie is not going to join us this evening, but we have two, I call them the super listeners. We have some fans that wrote the website, wanted to come and check out how we podcast, see how it all comes together.
Still not 100% sure they're not going to kill us.
They might. They're shifty looking. But they're here in the studio with us, joining, seeing how this all goes down. So we have Corey, a.k.a. Corlando, and Jennifer. They're here with us in the studio. Guys, kind of reach over and yell hello.
Hi.
Wait,
Hey.
Jennifer doesn't get an AKA?
Jennifer does not get an AKA.
Oh, okay.
I don't know an AKA for Jennifer.
She wants one.
Manquiqui.
Sounds good to me.
Jennifer Bonquiqui is her alias. So they're going to join us today and see how things go down. This show is dedicated to a man, a very special man close to my heart. Not really close to my heart, but he listens to our show religiously. He actually blasts our podcast through his house, and he's convinced 5 family members to also listen to the show. Mr. Johnny Darkness. Johnny Darkness, this show is for you. We love you, babe. Anyway.
I personally don't know who you are. I just heard about you like 5 minutes ago, but thanks.
And I could have
thank you for
sworn
listening.
his name was Johnny Nightmare.
No,
I could have sworn.
It's Johnny Darkness. I kept screwing it up before the show, saying Johnny
I think you
Darkness,
screwed it
Johnny
up
Nightmare, Johnny Darkness.
with the darkness.
It is Johnny Darkness.
Okay.
He's a dark fellow.
Isn't it Jeff Scarecrow?
No, it's Johnny
I'm
Darkness.
pretty sure it was Jeff Scarecrow.
I think
a few
Johnny
minutes ago.
Darkness is laughing right now, hopefully.
All right, whatever.
So he again, he's a power listener. He's turned 5 people plus himself onto our show. They blasted through their house. So I just wanted to thank him, and I told him
I hope he
would-
listens in his underwear.
I told them I would throw him a shout-out. So this is for you, Johnny Darkness. Thank you for listening. Guys, as always, I like to do a wrap-up of the previous episode. It was a pretty wild episode over at Riverpool Studios on the far northwest side of Chicago, would you say?
It was.
Some interesting
Definitely,
characters.
Definitely some things going on.
Yeah, you know what?
Dave, man.
Dave brought this pie that no one really liked or could eat.
Well, we couldn't eat it on air because it literally gummed our teeth
It
together.
would gum everything.
We wouldn't be able to
It
tell
was
me
a
talking like
s'mores
this.
chocolate pie with like marshmallow fluff for like it was like
The worst thing to bring for a podcast.
it was
actually.
It was like you have one bite and you're like, oh, that's good, and then you have a second bite, you're like, I'm going to die if I eat the
But
rest of this.
I think I caught diabetes.
besides
from
that
pie.
EVP we showed on there was pretty badass.
That was great editing in, by the way. Cutting it in, slowing it
Oh,
down
that's
for the
literally
listeners.
nothing, yeah.
That was good. That was one of the best EVPs I've ever heard. And it had relevance to their story with the mics popping off the stands and not appearing in the software.
See, the thing with me is like I still don't. I wasn't there, so I don't know. You know, I still always maintain that skepticism. Like, if I didn't record it myself, you know, who knows?
Yeah, as a lot of people do.
Yeah.
But given the situation, the story, the circumstances, and the people, it was pretty incredible.
I basically carry around a box of salt with me to throw grains of it at
Just in
everything.
case. And Dave, you had a pretty intense experience at Riverpool Studios.
Yeah,
You wanna,
it was.
Tell me about that.
Now, you know, I kind of like to. You know, we did SOS pretty heavy in like '98 was our busiest time. Like those first 2 months of 1998 is when we were like really heavy into the stuff, and then you know throughout the years, you know, we did it, but we weren't as intense as we were right at that beginning part. But we were pretty active from like 1998 to about 2005, I want to say, before we kind of all just got busy with our lives.
That's right. My Mr. Lincoln.
Being adults and whatnot. I kind of equate us to the Watchmen in that respect, you know, like
What do you mean by that?
Are you Rorschach?
I probably would be Rorschach, yeah. But the thing is that, you know, we're coming at this from a perspective of something that we used to be really into, and we're now just getting back into it. So we're taking kind of an interesting perspective on this. That, you know, we have about 10 years in between the last time we were active doing this till now. So we've had, basically what amounts to a lifetime of experiences.
That's true.
In between, like you had kids and a family, and I did my thing, and I did stand up comedy, and traveled
Started
all over
your
the
own
country,
business,
and started my own business, and Oscar, works at Starbucks,
Or some unnamed coffee establishment.
Caribou Coffee.
Starbucks is fine. Caribou's kicked out.
Yeah, because now that you said Starbucks, he's obviously going to get stalked at one of the 17,000 Starbucks stores in the greater metro Chicago area. There's places downtown Chicago you can stand in a Starbucks and look at two other Starbucks from the Starbucks.
It's pronounced Starbucks I for plurals.
But anyway, my point was...
So The Watchmen, because you told me this before, and I'm like, you know what? That's an excellent metaphor.
Yeah, because if you watch
what we're
the
doing.
Watchmen movie, it was kind of the same thing, where they kind of had to come back together to solve a new issue that arose and sort of reconnect with their roots, so to speak. So,
But you also said it was kind of like a checks and balances.
Yeah.
So explain that. How we were kind of the I don't want to say the experienced ones keeping the inexperienced in check, or do you remember? The Watchmen's were kind of the same way.
Yeah, something like that. But generally speaking, I've gone through most of the last 10 years, not ever, it crosses your mind and you think about it, and you run into things, you get into conversations and stuff. But once it's like kind of on the back burner, you don't really think about it that much. So over the last 10 years or so, when I started dating my girlfriend, we would go out and go to haunted places and stuff, just kind of as a fun thing to do. And we did get pictures and we did experience some things, and she was into it. But we didn't do it on a regular basis, didn't do it really heavily. I haven't really gone on any excursions, so it's kind of one of those things that it just sort of like fades into the background of your life. And it's like, this thing, but it's like, it doesn't really matter. You got other things to worry about. So when we were at the studios the other day, that was the first time in a long time that I kind of reconnected with my abilities to feel this stuff. That wasn't just, stumbling into a bar or whatever that I was doing comedy shows at and saying, oh, hey, this place is haunted.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was definitely, there was definitely a legitimate attempt to kind of turn it back on, and that was like full throttle.
I wish
it was pretty crazy.
Yeah, and you said a 10 out of 10, and I wish our listeners could have seen. I wish we had video running, because to see the look on your face, the tears literally running down, dripping off of your cheeks. You were sitting there in the chair, zoned out, and you were almost twitching, like your body was physically twitching at times, and you just seemed like you weren't even there for a while. Could you explain that moment?
Well, I was just
Do you remember that moment?
I was kind of just indulging in what I was feeling, because there's two ways you can go about it. You could either fight it and be like, I don't want to deal with this right now. It's like when you go into your dark, creepy basement to do your laundry. You're like, the last thing I want to do right now is feel anything weird.
Right.
So I'm going to do my laundry and get the hell out of here.
Right.
The house I live in, my landlord. I live in my landlord's house that he grew up in, and he's lived there since he was born. He was born in 1954, and his sister actually passed away of cancer in the house.
Oh man.
Now I've never actually felt anything in the house, other than kind of like having weird dreams and stuff like that. But that's kind of just it's the place I sleep, so weird dreams are going to happen. But I've made a conscious attempt to not be on when I'm in the house, because I don't want to have that to deal with. One, because if there is something there, I know what its source is, and the fact that I'm friends with and live in the house of the person who it's directly related to would be a really weird conversation to have,
Well, by the way, I think your sister's visiting at night, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that being difficult.
I don't think I'd want to, I wouldn't want to delve into that sort of thing.
That's
So
understandable.
I'm trying to stay away from kind of like that's kind of one of the things that sort of worries me a little bit about getting back into it, because when you turn that switch back on, sometimes you can't really shut it off.
Absolutely right.
And that's one of the last things I want to do is,
but you
have to go to my landlord and be like, by the way, I had this dream, and did this really happen? Like, because I could totally see, like, having a dream about, a kid in front of the house playing with a toy or whatever, and saying to my landlord, like, hey, I had this dream about a kid playing with, like, a toy truck or whatever, and him going, yeah, that was me. Or something like that,
Right. But now you're saying at Liverpool Studios, you deliberately turned it on.
Deliberately kind of,
and you paid for it.
Turned on the floodgates. And, it was definitely, that was the strongest I had felt it in a long, long, long time. Probably at least, the last time I felt something that strong was probably like Bachelor's Grove or Robinson Woods or something like that back in like 2004 or something like that. And
it's interesting that something that intense, the psychic that was in the house, couldn't figure out what it was exactly.
Yeah.
And I felt that was kind of strange. But anyway.
Well, I feel like, I think there's when people say psychic, it conjures up a bunch of different things, but I think there's different kind of levels of it. There's the, kind of being able to read other people sort of psychic, and then there's the kind of being able to read energies sort of psychic.
Like you and Joe.
And being able to read,
tea leaves.
Well, just trying to, like, being able to read, like, events happening or occurring or things like that. So I think there's different kind of breeds of it, if you will. And I'm a pug and she was a Dalmatian or something like that.
But both canines.
Right. So that rolls into what I want to talk about was the quality of that last episode. We're new to this. Oscar is a great producer. He knows what he's doing. But
I've been faking it the whole time.
That last episode was extremely staticky. There was a lot of feedback during that entire episode, and I just found it kind of ironic. I'm not saying this is what caused it, but I found it really ironic that you were in the throes of a paranormal episode, and you're on tape, on time-release radio, saying this is a 10 out of 10. You're sitting there twitching from this energy, and we're having this really bad, I guess, feedback throughout the entire episode. Is it far-fetched to say that the energy that you were experiencing, and I heard a voice, I mentioned it in the last podcast, interfered with the recording equipment somehow?
Well, that's one of the things that kind of swirls around paranormal research circles, is that your equipment malfunctions and stuff like that when you're amongst the energy or whatever. And I always kind of took that with a grain of salt, too. And I had experiences where the camera would, the battery would, die after 10 pictures or whatever.
Yeah.
And, all that. And I always kind of attributed it to, well, we're out here in the winter, so it could just be the cold. Or, I always rationalized it other ways. But I can honestly say that, yes, because I take my camera out in the woods and I'll take pictures of salamanders and frogs and snakes and stuff. I never have a problem there.
But going to a reportedly haunted location,
right,
you're going to run into some problems.
But then again, we're doing paranormal stuff in the winter when it's really cold. I'm doing wildlife stuff in the summer when it's warm.
And speaking to the winter, I had the equipment in the car while I was at work before I drove to you guys, because I drove right after work. And I had it in my car the whole time in the winter, so it was cold. It took a while to warm up everything, But I did give it a chance to warm up, though, for a while.
Oh, sure. Yeah, we were
Otherwise,
we were there talking for a good hour and a half.
I can't conclusively say it had something to do with the energy in the room, but there was obviously a very strong energy in the room, and there's no doubt that it, if it's electrical or electrochemical in nature, that it's going to be able to interfere with equipment.
Right. And, listeners, we're not saying one way or the other. We just figured we'd throw it out there. A recording like that hasn't happened before. We've recorded in garages and other strange areas and always had pretty clear recordings. So I just thought it was something worth mentioning. I like doing that recap. Anything else about the Liverpool Studios episode?
Not really.
Pretty cool location.
Yeah, excellent location. And the Pond Hawks are actually ranked like the number 3 indie band in the country right now.
Huh.
So they're no joke. So
They
really
gave
special
me a
being there with
CD
them.
to listen to, and I realized I got home I don't have a CD player.
It's still sitting in my van that has an old cassette player in it.
Nothing that remotely plays anything
my
related
laptop,
to a CD.
I think, has a CD. I haven't listened to it yet. I've listened to clips online. I haven't listened to the whole CD. They're actually very talented. So we were
I have
lucky to get in there.
I have 2 cars now. I have a van that was made in 1999 that doesn't have a CD player. My old van was a 2001, and that didn't have a CD player. And it doesn't have any like beverage holders. Did people not listen to CDs or drink beverages in their car until 2004?
Asinine.
They had it removed. They must have. I mean, every car has something like that all the time.
But yeah,
It's kind of hard to avoid that. That's my thing anyway. But the location was pretty cool. I psyched myself out at one point. I gave myself the goosebumps. I still think it's just goosebumps. Anyway, I gave myself goosebumps when you were going through your episode, David. And
there was definitely something there with us.
I really could feel myself psyching myself out rather than I'm not saying I felt something.
Well, that's the thing is like, are you psyching yourself out, or are you in turn opening yourself to it as well? And
I don't know
getting, because that's the thing
right.
is when people are in a haunted location, they get a little bit freaked out, and that kind of opens them up to.
I mean, I watched The Conjuring, and I feel the same thing.
Exactly.
It's not the same thing, you know.
Well, I'll tell you, I was standing in that bathroom. I was going number 1 and standing there doing my business, and I heard clearly over my left shoulder of like something was trying to talk to me over my shoulder.
Or eat something with its mouth full.
And the people who run the studio said there is nobody upstairs. You know, you mentioned a vent, that the upstairs is empty, and I heard it clear as day. I called to you guys. Of course, you guys didn't hear me. Could be getting murdered in there. Finally, I yelled, Joe, and Joe came in, and I told him the story. And so, I don't know, great location. I hope the Pondhawks have us back sometime in the future. They say on this new CD they're putting out, which they couldn't give us any clips or anything at the time because it's not copywritten yet and all that, that they have caught other relevant EVPs, and they'd be willing to share. So hopefully they bring us back.
I mean, they got us some material for a future episode at least, so that's pretty cool. Yeah,
And they're good interviewers, too.
I'll have to go back. It's also nearby my house.
Yeah, Mario Erie, he's a blast. He's a riot. So
yeah.
So anyway, just wanted to wrap that up. Mr. Lincoln report. No sightings within the last 2 weeks of my attachment of the physical being that I see, Mr. Lincoln, the black-figured, impossibly tall, skinny, long-arm hat man. But my daughter, again, had something kind of strange happen the other day. This may seem really mundane, but you'd have to know my family. For family parties, my mom makes her famous deviled eggs. Everyone loves them. They go like hotcakes. So my wife and my daughter were driving back to my location, I won't say where that is, from Chicago, from the city of Chicago. It was nighttime, maybe around 8 p.m. It was about 2 days ago. And from the back seat, my daughter was calling to my wife. My wife turned down the volume on the radio, and she said, Mommy, it smells like Goma's eggs in here. My daughter calls my mother Goma instead of Grandma. It's a thing. She goes, it smells like Goma's eggs in here. My wife's like, well, that's weird. Next day, we just in passing mention it to my mother, Sue, Knight, what my daughter had said, and she goes, what time was that? What time did Talia say that? And my wife's like, I think it was around 8 o'clock we were hitting the tollway. And she goes, I was making the eggs at 8 p.m. that same night. And my wife just kind of looked at my daughter, and Talia got this, what are you going to do? What do you want from me? Kind of look on her face.
Wasn't me.
So,
forget about it.
Again, there's that thing that the Eastern European women in my family have, I think, being passed down to the next generation of my daughter. That's the only thing that happened. I know it's not super climactic.
That's good that's the only thing the Eastern European women have in your family, because a lot of times they have mustaches. Who's with me?
No,
who's with me? High five, come on.
No one's supporting
high-fiving.
anything you do.
Johnny Darkness, what do you think of that?
I'd rather not touch
I don't like that, Johnny.
Now, deviled egg, that's 2-part mayonnaise, 1-part egg?
And like relish and like cayenne pepper.
Never liked that.
Because the only thing you can do to make an egg healthier is add some mayonnaise to it.
That's why it's deviled?
And in some cases cinnamon, but...
And maybe
you just had to say what they
butter.
said. Huh?
So throw some butter in there.
So that was the only strange thing that happened with us. Oscar, have you had anything happen lately?
I mean, no. I saw It Follows again, but that's it.
Good movie.
Damn good movie.
I like
everyone
that
go
movie.
watch that movie
The
immediately.
soundtrack, the feel, the way it was
Love the
shot.
soundtrack a lot.
It was
Disaster did a good job about the soundtrack.
80s
The day after I saw that movie.
reborn. I mean, it brought me
so
right
good.
back to the 80s.
Yeah,
Loved it.
I personally watched
it's
16
that-
Candles.
It's
this
that fear
weekend.
of sex kind of horror. Like if you have sex when you're too young. You know,
and
you
that
get
was
this
like the
happen.
underlying
Yeah.
thing for every
Yeah,
80s campy horror film,
exactly.
right?
But that's kind of it. I mean, I've seen other. I saw The Shining the other day, actually.
The Shining.
I showed someone for their first time.
It's The Shining. You want to get sued?
Exactly.
Simpsons.
Yep.
Boom.
Copyright.
So nothing paranormal. Nothing strange.
No, never.
Okay. How about you, Davon? Anything crazy happen to you?
Not really. It's been kind of quiet, low key.
Yeah, for me personally, I was super busy at work last week. I haven't really had time to pay attention to the ether, the otherworldly. So just that one thing happened with my daughter. So nothing on the Mr. Lincoln front, thankfully.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, Super Bowl 50 just passed. Today's Super Bowl Sunday. Denver Broncos win. Spoiler alert. Okay, footy ball. This is the World Series,
Who
right?
were they against?
They were playing
World
the
Series.
they were playing the Tampa Bay
Colorado.
Pattersons.
Yes, the Pattersons. Yes.
The Pattersons.
I don't know many things about sports.
I know nothing.
So Super Bowl 50, congratulations to
Like, I swear to God, a few years ago when the Cardinals were in it, I'm like, how did a baseball team get into the how did a baseball team get into the Super Bowl? Like, I literally had that thought. I'm like, Cardinals, what?
Okay, so
Yeah.
all right, on to the show itself. In honor of St. Valentine's Day,
It's
which
creeping up.
is a week from today,
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to talk about the infamous St.
Yeah.
Valentine's Day Massacre site right here in Chicago, 2122 North Clark Street,
Correct.
and our experiences there.
Which is where we're recording. No, we're not.
No,
but
we're
that'd be
not.
fun.
We will.
I actually did try to
I know we tried.
lock
We
down
tried.
a location over there, but
We're working
Schedules
on
and
that.
whatnot,
Yeah.
but we'll work on it later.
Yeah.
That'd be kind of cool.
We actually, Supernatural Occurrence Studies, captured the only photo showing anything paranormal happening on the infamous massacre grounds.
The only, after many photographs have been taken.
Thousands.
Thousands,
We
yeah.
caught it. Dave Black caught it, actually,
Mhm.
on the 69th anniversary of the massacres.
I was there by myself.
Yep. So I want to talk about that. I want to talk about Gangsters. I want to talk about the outfit. In Chicago, Oscar, it's not the mafia. It's not the syndicate. It's the outfit. So just want to put that out there to our listeners. A lot of people don't realize that, especially listeners tuning in from other parts of the country. The mob in Chicago is known as the outfit. So we're going to talk about ghosts. We're going to talk about gangsters.
Yeah, I've seen Miller's Crossing.
We're going to talk about our experiences at the St. Valentine's Day Massacre site. Coming up right after this.
Somehow I knew forevermore life would be sweet to me. Skies would be blue forevermore. Clouds left behind us never would find us. Dreams would come true forevermore.
All right, fellas, line up. You know the drill. Come on, heads against the wall. Spread them. Now hold still. Commanding words likely spoken by police officers in their thick Chicago twangs as they entered the SMC Cartage Company garage, 2122 North Clark Street in Chicago, on St. Valentine's Day morning, 1929. Owned by powerful Northside gangster and bootlegger George Bugs Moran, the unassuming SMC garage served as the Moran gang's automobile service garage and liquor storehouse. That morning, 7 of Bugs' associates milled about the SMC, telling dirty jokes while sipping cold coffee and nipping hooch. Were they awaiting the boss, Moran, to give details on the next big score? Was a murder being planned? Were they anticipating a shipment of illegal booze? Why the men were gathered that morning is anyone's guess. Instead of booze or their boss, they got a police raid instead. Although most of Moran's men were packing heat, not one of them fired off a single shot. When the cops bust in, assuming theirs was a routine shakedown, Moran's men fell into line without incident. They couldn't have been more wrong. If there was ever a time to engage the police in gunplay, this was certainly it. Once the police arranged the 7 hoods, defenseless, spread eagle, and palms to the wall, the officer in charge signaled another copper and 3 trench-coated G-men to open fire. With weapons ablaze, the devilishly disguised assassins took 3 swipes at Moran's men, forming a roaring backwards S of searing lead. Starting from left to right, the first thunderous volley of bullets sent brains flying as the killers easily laid waste to the unsuspecting men's heads. Next, the assassins swung their weapons in the reverse direction, ventilating the men's chests, effectively reducing screaming lungs into gurgling Swiss cheese. Finally, knowing if the job wasn't done completely, the assassins themselves could expect a similar fate, the gunmen swung their weapons back in the opposite direction, letting loose the men's guts. The black and white photos that would accompany news stories about the massacre, showing a tangle of bodies and pools of blood, were among the most graphically violent to ever appear in the American press. When the acrid gun smoke faded from the frigid room, 6 men were dead and 1 lay dying. Blood flowed from gaping wounds and into floor drains, meant for car washing and fluid changes. Movies and television shows have been based on it, songs written about it, even a boxing match named after it. Sugar Ray Robinson vs. Jake LaMotta, February 14th, 1951. It is still considered the most brutal, unsolved event in gangland history, the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. Rubbed out that day were Peter and Frank Gusenberg, gunmen for the Albanian, Weiss, Drucci, Moran mob. Frank Gusenberg survived the initial massacre only to give up the ghost hours later at Alexian Brothers Hospital. Albert Weinshank, a Northside bootlegger and nightclub owner. John May, an SMC mechanic and safe blower. James Clark, a.k.a. Albert Kalachek, George Moran's brother-in-law, robber, and killer. Dr. Reinhard Schwimmer, an optometrist who enjoyed sleazing around with outfit men. And Arthur Hayes, a.k.a. Adam Heyer, a.k.a. Frank Snyder, an accountant and embezzler. Welcome to Gangland Chicago, the blood-spattered bootlegging mess that it was. At midnight on January 16, 1920, the 18th Amendment to the United States Constitution took effect, prohibiting the sale of alcoholic beverages. Drying up the citizenry was the goal, but an unforeseen side effect of outlawing alcohol made America's streets breeding grounds for cold-blooded entrepreneurs, bootleggers, and in Chicago was certainly no exception. It was the rule. Big-time Chicago outfit men like Alphonse Scarface Capone and George Bugs Moran built empires, hawking illegal booze, and became powerful beyond the typical American's wildest dreams. Almost daily, the increasingly brazen antics of mobsters and rum runners made front-page news across the country. Criminals enjoyed a mythical status, as their fantastically romantic names enjoyed front-page status while capturing the imagination of those living the mundane. People saw men like Scarface Al Capone, Machine Gun Jack McGurn, Nitty the Enforcer, Greasy Thumb Guzik, Bugs Moran, and Diamond Jim Colosimo more as modern Robin Hoods than the murderous criminals they really were. Love it or hate it, America was in the throes of gangster fever. As author Jonathan Eeg writes, bootlegging offered a certain kind of dignity. As bootleggers, gangsters provided a useful service and catered to a respectable class of customer. Flush with cash, they dressed with panache and consorted with a higher class of friends. They became romantic figures, celebrated by journalists who liked their style, their slang, their nicknames, not to mention their booze. While outfit leaders like Capone and Moran amassed fortunes and a cult following, most of their underlings barely got by. Others, like the unfortunate Valentine victims, would survive only in the annals of history as the ruthlessly murdered. As a result of Prohibition, back rooms, alleyways, and dirty streets became the final witness to countless throwaway lives. To avoid prosecution, gangsters paid police officers and officials to look the other way, which they did routinely. Poor salaries, coupled with the haunting rumors of an imminent depression, forced cops and politicos to hold out their hands hoping for a piece of the action. Of course, as long as it meant protection, the gangsters were all too happy to oblige. After all, bootleggers easily made a cop's salary in days and in some cases hours. As a result of the hundreds of gangland murders and countless violations of the 18th Amendment, very few perpetrators were ever caught, much less tried and convicted. Little did the framers of the 18th Amendment know, outlawing booze would not only further corrupt politics, it would aggravate the average citizen too. Americans were not in the mood to have their freedoms trampled. The First World War had just ended and the United States was ready to relax again. Put simply, Americans wanted their booze. If getting tipsy meant turning a blind eye to a little gangster-on-gangster crime, so be it. This time, though, it was different. The St. Valentine's Day Massacre was so audacious, so calculated and vicious, not to mention committed by murderers dressed as officers of the law, that a huge public outcry to end the violence shook not only local law enforcement agencies, but national agencies as well. Liquor or no liquor, the people had spoken. No longer would John Q. Public sit idly by and allow the killings to continue. The St. Valentine's Day Massacre stirred people in a way that had seldom been stirred before. From coast to coast, people seemed suddenly to be reaching the conclusion that a line had been crossed, that the violence had become too much to bear, that the experiment known as Prohibition had blown up once and for all. It was simple. The St. Valentine's Day Massacre could not go unpunished. Scarface Al Capone, the pugnacious Southside gangster every Chicagoan hates to love, is likely responsible for the massacre. Even though everyone believed he was behind it, Big Al was never officially charged with the slayings. Conveniently, he was entertaining guests in Florida while the dirt was being done back home in Chicago. Having a number of witnesses placing him in Florida at the time of the murders, Scarface had a rock-solid alibi. When questioned about the murders, even Bugs Moran himself, quite possibly the intended eighth victim and primary target of the massacre, famously went on record saying, "Only Capone kills like that." As history tells us, known Capone henchmen carried out the execution. Murray Campbell Humphreys, Fred Killer Burke, Fred the Brains Goetz, Byron Bolton, Gus Winkler, and possibly Claude Screwy Maddox were the Valentine's killers. We now believe that Burke and Goetz were the killers dressed in full police garb. Both were chosen to act as policemen because their faces were unknown to Moran's men, and therefore they were more likely to gain entrance to the SMC garage without incident. The plan obviously worked flawlessly. We now know the facts, but back then, try as they might, law enforcement agencies were unable to pin the murders on anyone. Persons of interest were brought in for questioning, but all were released for lack of evidence. Almost the entire Chicago police force itself was interrogated in efforts to smoke out a possible inside job. Of course, all officers were cleared of any wrongdoing. As time passed, the gunmen involved in the massacre were dealt various forms of street justice. Fred Goetz and Gus Winkler were murdered. Murray Humphreys sent to Leavenworth for tax evasion. Fred Killer Burke caught a life sentence for killing a police officer in Michigan. And if he was actually involved, only Claude Screwy Maddox died peacefully in his own bed 26 years after the massacre. To this day, believe it or not, the St. Valentine's Day Massacre is classified unsolved. Or is it? In his exceptionally researched book, Get Capone, The Secret Plot That Captured America's Most Wanted Gangster, author Jonathan Eeg unfolds an explosive plot that all but exonerates Capone from masterminding the murders. Instead, Eeg introduces newly discovered FBI documents naming a savage street tough and federal informant named William Three-Fingered Jack White as the likely engineer, not Capone. According to Eeg, White set in motion plans for the St. Valentine's Day Massacre shortly after his cousin, William Davern Jr., the son of a Chicago police sergeant, was shot in the belly and killed by members of the Moran mob during a bar fight at the C&O Cabaret and Restaurant in Chicago in November 1928. Using a fake payroll holdup as a ploy, White enlisted the help of the Gusenberg brothers to assist with this make-believe scheme. According to Eeg, White and the Gusenbergs, along with 5 other men, once worked together to pull off a large heist. When one co-conspirator turned rat and began naming his fellow crooks, White and an unnamed accomplice, disguised as police officers, snuck into the Canary's home and whacked them. Now, the promise of a large score would certainly explain why 7 of Moran's men were gathered that fateful Valentine's Day morning. The fact that a cop's son was murdered may even account for why the investigation of the crime went nowhere. Perhaps word had spread through the police department that the garage killing had been carried out in retaliation for the murder of a cop's kid. That would have been enough to quell further investigation and persuade investigators to accept this rough form of street justice. White even had access to police uniforms through his relationship with William Davern Sr. By simply lending out a few police uniforms, a grieving father could help avenge his son's death. Whether it was White or Capone that planned the murders, or somebody else entirely, we're left guessing. Time has swallowed up the case, and anyone who could shed light on the murders has since long passed. What is not open for debate, however, is the permanent stain the massacre left on Chicago. Even though the killings happened nearly 90 years ago, and the Chicago outfit is no longer the superpower it once was, people the world over still see Chicago as a gangland capital. This unfortunate blemish forced Chicago's past mayor, Richard Old Man Daley, to go on a demolishing spree, effectively razing gangland significant buildings in hopes of ridding his city of the unflattering outfit memories. Destroyed by the city of Chicago in 1967 was probably the most famous or infamous of them all, the SMC Cartage Company garage. Obviously, the old man's efforts did little to change the way outsiders view Chicago. Ask any non-Chicagoan what they know about the city, and they'll answer Al Capone, gangsters, and sadly the Cubs too. Moreover, the destruction of these historically rich locations did little to prevent the haunted reputation that many of these spots have picked up over the years. Wherever Scarface was rumored to lurk, so do ghosts. Wherever bootlegging, prostitution, and gambling were said to abound, so do the ghostly legends. There is not a better example of a haunted Chicago underworld location as a St. Valentine's Day Massacre site. On this single tiny plot of land, you had it all. Mobsters, bootlegging, deception, and murder. No wonder haunted rumors flourish. Chicago ghost hunters tell stories of moans and groans coming from the massacre grounds, quite possibly the last sounds made by the dying men's bullet-punctured lungs. Others claim to have seen men in fedora hats and trench coats, typical outfit attire of the 1920s and 30s, wandering the massacre site, while others swear they hear men calling for help. Some have experienced roaming cold spots and constant feelings of distress while walking near the murder grounds. And even stranger still, witnesses swear their pet canines go haywire while walking on or near the massacre site, whining, whimpering, barking, and growling at what appears to be thin air. Interestingly, a dog was involved in the 1929 killings. A victim, John May, had his dog Highball tied to the bumper of a car that was being serviced in the SMC garage. Highball survived the bloodbath, but bore witness to the heinous crime. As legend goes, Highball was so distraught over witnessing his master's gruesome demise that he had to be put down a short time later, the massacre's 8th victim. All the history and mystery brought Dave Black, Chicago's own Supernatural Occurrence Studies co-founder, to the killing grounds. On Valentine's Day night, 1998, the 69th anniversary of the massacre. That night, Black recalls the feelings or vibes he receives when ghosts are around were especially strong. All at once he knew the haunting rumors were true. Black began randomly taking photographs and documenting his steps with a tape recorder. He recalls knowing the energies were near, it was just a matter of capturing them. As a result of Black's diligence, he captured the only photograph in existence showing paranormal activity on the massacre grounds. Not only did he capture the photograph, Black also captured ethereal moans and groans on his audio recorder. When considering the sordid history surrounding the massacre site, eyewitness testimony, and the physical evidence captured, it seems that Moran's men are still lurking around the old garage, telling jokes, sipping coffee, and anxiously awaiting a clandestine meeting that will never take place.
I remember being there that night, and like I feel in most haunted locations, there was definitely something there, so I just started snapping pictures. I was by myself, too. There was nobody else with me.
Yep.
I was single at the time, on Valentine's Day.
Aww.
And when I got those pictures back, there was that one very clear ring of mist, right, hanging in the bushes.
You could
right there on the lot.
Our listeners could see it, sos-radio.com, photos and video, and it's called St. Valentine's Day Massacre.
The interesting thing about the story you just laid out, which is the first time I ever heard you tell that whole spiel, is that a lot of what you were saying sounds exactly like what's going on in Chicago today with all the shootings and the gangland murders and all that.
The Chirac.
And it seems to me that this has been an ongoing theme with Chicago police for nearly a century of when criminals or perceived criminals are killed, rather than solving those crimes, they just kind of shrug their shoulders and be like, yeah, they deserved it. Case closed. Garbage killing garbage. Who cares?
We actually had that happen to a very close personal friend of us, of ours, if you think about it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Where did that case go?
I tell a story of him a lot to people that talk about how Chicago's got the most strict gun laws in the country, and they have all this gun violence, and one, that's not really true, and most of the guns that are used in this gun violence in Chicago come from right over the border from one particular gun shop in Indiana.
No kidding.
Yeah. And I feel like it's the same thing going on today, that, they see some gangbanger laying in the street dead, and they're just like, eh. But as you recall, a few years ago, south side of Chicago, there was this young black rookie cop in front of his mother's house on his new motorcycle. And a gang of guys came up to him and said, hey, give us your motorcycle. He said no. They shot him and killed him, took his motorcycle. And it was this big tragedy. It was in the news. He was the first Chicago police officer that had died in a few years. And, they were making a big to-do about it. Oh, it's just tragedy. And he had his whole life ahead of him. And he was, first time a Chicago cop had been. And my logic the whole time I was hearing that was like, well, maybe, just maybe, if you actually did something to catch those guys when they probably did that same exact thing to a half dozen other people, those guys wouldn't be on the street anymore to have killed your guy.
Yeah.
So it's
Chicago definitely has that violent history.
And it's still here today. Like, when I talk to people that are not from Chicago, the immediate thing, that's a dangerous place. It's a dangerous place.
Yep.
Like, I live in an Orthodox Jewish neighborhood. It's not dangerous. No. Not dangerous at all there. But, the only violence that occurred in that neighborhood was in 1999 when some crazed white supremacist guy came running through the neighborhood, and he's the guy that shot Ricky Birdsong, and he was like a Nathan Hale follower.
Oh,
you remember that guy? He was mad because of affirmative action or something like that.
Yeah.
And he just was randomly targeting people and shooting people, and that was the most violence that ever occurred in that area.
I definitely think there's a difference in the violence from the 19s, 20s, 30s, 40s, and the outfit versus these insane
But it's really, I mean,
disorganized, just sloppy gangs that
I
are
don't
running
think,
around Chicago today.
but I really don't think. I think that a lot of the murders that you hear about are, in fact, targeting specific enemies of theirs. I think a lot of these...
They don't aim. They don't care.
Well,
back then, gangsters killed gangsters. You know,
but there were still... there were still civilian casualties back then, too.
And then there's the Devil in the White City in the late 1800s.
Right. I mean, think of all the unchecked negativity that's gone throughout this city's history. Exactly. The World's Columbian Exposition and Herman Mudgett, the H.H. Holmes, Devil in the White City.
Yeah.
Chicago Fire, political corruption, murder, the frontier days. It's just
for the entire time,
unchecked spiritual negativity has always surrounded the city.
I've lived in Chicago proper for over 12 years now. And what I have found is that anytime you are the victim of a crime in Chicago, whether it be your car was broken into, or hit and run, or your house was burglarized, or whatever it is, when the police show up, if they show up at all, most of the time they just make you come to the station, fill out a report, and you never hear anything again. But if they show up at all, they have this attitude of like, what do you want us to do about it? Like,
yeah, you're bothering them.
Yeah, it's like a friend of mine had his apartment broken into and rifled through and ransacked. He lived on the second floor, and somebody took a ladder, climbed in through his window. And the most disturbing thing was they left a big butcher knife sitting on his bed, which means they were probably holding the knife the whole time in case he came home, they could stab him to death with it. And that was the most disturbing thing he found. And when the police showed up, they were like eating sandwiches. And they're like, well, what do you want us to do about it? We got murders to solve. And it's like, you're the burglary police. You're not the murder police. And when was the last time you heard of a murder being solved in Chicago? The only time the Chicago police act on a murder is when it's some innocent child or valedictorian or some mistaken identity or a white person that gets shot, and then all of a sudden they have suspects rounded up in like 10 seconds.
All right.
And they're blasting it all over the news. And and it just seems like this has been Chicago for almost its entire existence.
Right. So
is the police don't care.
Yep.
They just don't care.
And I think a lot of this negativity, just from the citizenry, from the crimes that are happening from the police and the politicians,
and
I
the
think
glorification of films about our city.
Yeah, Chirac. I think it left this city spiritually stagnant, and maybe that's why there's so many haunted locations throughout Chicago and the surrounding suburbs. Just because it's spiritually vacant, man.
Well, there's also a lot of history here. Any place that has a lot of history is going to have a lot of haunted stuff going on.
The thing is that we have a lot of history fast. We're a young country. This is a younger city than New York.
I mean...
And, we just have it so much.
If you think about it, anything basically west of the Appalachians is fairly new territory.
Yeah.
I mean...
Yeah.
Oh, just in the last couple of years it was settled, or a couple hundred years it was settled.
Yeah.
Like, can you imagine going to, like, Europe or Rome, where these places have been for thousands of years been occupied by humans?
Imagine. Well, maybe one day we can get there, guys, with
really
the SOS-radio.com podcast.
Yeah.
But, I want to give you your lion's share of... because you caught that photograph, and it's the only one in existence. As a matter of fact, just going on, the Chicago corruption and the spiritual stagnance... That photo itself was stolen from us, illegally published.
Yeah.
We had to go to court. We fought. We won. So I want to give you your lion's share of that story. Could you, I know it's been a long time and we thought we weren't going to be doing this again, but could you kind of take us back to that 69th anniversary of the massacre?
The thing is, I've been there so many times since. I've probably been to that spot 50 times.
So describe the spot. So it used to be the SMC garage.
Okay, yeah.
What is it now?
It's like I don't know if it's a condo.
Right now it's a vacant lot.
Well, but it's the front lawn of like a condo residential building. I don't know if it's like an assisted living home or something to that effect, or like a retirement type condominium building.
It's on Clark Street.
It's on Clark Street. It's surrounded by an iron gate, and it has a like a landscaped front lawn, little rolling hills and some planted trees and stuff like that. And the one part of the property where the garage used to stand has got a few trees dotting it, a couple of bushes on it, and it butts up against like a 3-flat right next door.
Yeah, so where where the back wall would have been, where the men were sheepishly lined up, thinking they're just going through a routine shakedown. That is now that's 3 flat.
Yeah.
Where that back wall was of the SMC garage.
Right.
So completely unassuming.
Yeah, it's
the average person who just moves in the neighborhood, walks past, has no idea.
The first time you go and look at it, you're like, "That's it."
Yeah.
It's kind of boring.
Yeah, and actually,
the cool thing is if you go through the back way though,
through the alley,
you can walk into the parking area. You can literally walk around on the lawn, and nobody has ever been like, "What are you doing? Get out of here!"
Yeah, I never encountered that either.
But the cool thing about that alley is it's got the old brick paving. That's probably from that era.
Wow.
So you can actually still see the bricks in the street, which is pretty neat.
Isn't that amazing? And they say so. The old man Daly had SMC garage demolished. People have rumored to collectors. These bullet-ridden bricks of that back wall of the SMC garage became collector's items. And they say, I don't know if it's true.
They were cursed.
They were cursed bricks. Some of the bricks were used to line some bar in another, I think it was Indiana. And, the bar suffered, a fire. And then it suffered, financial ruin.
Hitler touched them.
Yeah.
Things like
Other
that.
people who purchased the books, had similar things, bankruptcies and deaths. And people kind of, after so long, just got rid of the bricks. And all the bricks are now pretty much missing. No one knows where they're at. But walking past it, you have no idea that this horrendous crime took place there. As a matter of fact, Kitty Corner, just across the street, is now, it's a 3 flat also. It's a restaurant called the Chicago Pizza and Oven Grinder. Mm-hmm. But that building back then, in 29, was owned by Bugs Moran himself. And his henchmen used to sit up in the front window, the second floor, and observe.
Keep guard, look out.
Excuse me, that was wrong. That it was not owned by Moran. It was owned by someone in Capone's gang. You had the North Side Irish and the South Side Italian fighting. That's the big gang war was between the Irish and Italian, North Side versus South Side. Someone in Capone's gang owned that building, and Capone's men used to sit up in the second floor and keep a stakeout watch on the SMC garage to see the comings and goings. Right. And you can still, that's someone lives up there now. A guy lives up there.
It's the office.
Is that what it is? Office of the Pizza and Oven Grinder?
I wonder if they know.
So imagine, they know. Oh, no, they know.
They know?
Oh,
okay.
yeah. Yeah, they get a lot of their business just based on the fact that they're in the building where the men staked out the Bugs Moran crew waiting for the St. Valentine's Day Massacre.
Last week, and they're like, no, we don't really experience anything here.
Wow. But you did talk to him about recording there, and she seemed open, which that we'd like to revisit. Because, Chicago is just riddled with gangsters. And we'll get to that in a little while, but I'm sorry, Dave, I keep taking away from you. So you're there, 69th anniversary. We described the plot of land. You enter through the alley. You're walking around the grounds. Mm-hmm. What are you feeling? Do you remember?
It was, the usual feeling that I normally... It didn't seem like any... sometimes I go there and there's, you get nothing. It's like zero. Nothing on the meter, And then sometimes you go there and it's, just kind of humming and buzzing. And it's never really, It's never one of those places where you go to where you just automatically, okay, tonight's a hot night.
This wasn't Liverpool Studios.
It's not like that. It's just kind of like... It's kind of like just a sort of like a background buzzing vibe. You're like, oh, okay, I'm kind of feeling it.
Something made you take that fateful photo. And thankfully, something made you do it.
I was just taking a bunch of pictures that night, and I figured, it's the anniversary, Valentine's Day.
Yeah, so think about it. Earlier that morning, 69 years ago, at that time, this horrible event took place.
Well,
that's intense,
you got to account for leap years and stuff too. So it probably actually wasn't exactly 69 years. It was probably 69 years and 8 hours or something like that. It was pretty. Actually, now that I think of it, depending on the time of day that the shooting took place,
it was very early in the morning,
and I was there at probably about 10:30 at night, 10 o'clock at night. So it might have actually lined up to exactly, with if you account for leap year times in there, it might have actually lined up exactly.
Oh wow, you just blew my mind. Could you imagine?
Somebody'd have to do the math on that.
Yeah, someone out there, do the math. Get back to us.
I hate math.
Because I know the whole thing, because an actual year is 364.25 days.
Yeah.
And that's why we do the leap years, to just kind of lump that year in. that extra day in every 4 years.
Right.
So
wow. So you could have been, as that was happening, you were walking the grounds at the same exact time.
Yeah, but I mean,
infinity, right?
In theory, but then again, my theories about time and stuff, I think it's pretty irrelevant as far as time goes.
Yeah. Flat circle.
Flat Earth. So let's describe this photograph. Again, you can see it. It's called St. Valentine's Day Massacre on the SOS-radio.com website under Photos and Videos. And there's that photo, man. It looks like first of all, it looks like a big heart. Mm-hmm. Looks like a great big heart, St. Valentine's Day, right? Created by the ectoplasmic mist, the energy, the stuff ghosts are made of. Inside the heart, it looks like the silhouette of a man who could be wearing like a trench coat.
That's a stretch, but
that's what it looks like to me. And it also looks like what's making the humps of the heart, where it comes down to a point, the top of the heart. It almost looks like two faces coming up and facing one another. Could it be Moran and Capone? Who knows? But that's kind of what it looks like. Simulacra. I could see, Dave, as you said, I could see an elephant in the clouds, right?
Yeah.
But that is what it looks like, and I challenge the listeners, go out and check it out and write to us and tell us what you see. Dave, what do you think?
I try not to read it too much into that. I like to have everyone kind of formulate their own opinion.
Absolutely. In no way am I trying to form someone's opinion. You're right. Go ahead.
So that's basically my thing on that. But, the truth of the matter is that particular night didn't seem any much more spectacular or different than any other night I had been there.
Wow.
And the funny thing is that obviously you don't know instantaneously whether you got something until you get the photos captured. Right. So it's like you logged your
and then you also have
steps or your memory of that particular day, right?
You also have to remember the first night that we went out. The first night that we went out and started taking pictures was January 28th of 1998.
Yeah.
So this was February 14th of 1998. This was just 2 weeks later. This was 16 days later.
Yeah.
I was out there by myself. And I think that was the first time I went somewhere by myself, too. And I was just coming to terms with this stuff. So, I wasn't really expecting anything out of it. And then, sure enough, that picture showed up.
Yeah. As the clairsensitive, maybe somewhere deep inside you, you knew that.
Maybe if there is a crowd, it's like the ghost or whoever or whatever.
Well,
like,
sure, but
alone.
In those early days, everywhere I went, I took tons and tons of pictures.
Right, yeah,
so,
that's true.
Regardless of whether I was feeling something or not, I just took picture after picture after picture.
Right.
And I'd really like to, now that we're in the digital age, we can get out there with 15 people with digital cameras just taking pictures like crazy. I can't imagine what kind of stuff we can get.
Yep. And we're going to do that. We're going to get an experiment. We were talking offline about someone who wants to go on an experimental hunt with us and then come on to the show and report back.
I have a friend I was talking to she's completely skeptical, has no, just casually talking on Facebook, completely skeptical of anything paranormal, supernatural. And basically I said, hey, do you want to come on the show and talk about your skepticism, then have us drag you out in the field for, an excursion or two, get some photographs and pictures and audio, see what happens, and then come back on afterwards. Mm-hmm.
That's going to make a great show.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys
if nothing happens.
And I have another friend on the back burner for that as well. I feel like probably maybe once every 4 shows or so we could bring on a skeptic, and then have them kind of voice their opinion and give their ideas, and then bring them out in the field and then bring them back and see if they change their mind.
Eventually we'll get a bite, too.
Yeah, that would
be not right away.
That would be great. So I don't know if you guys heard that. I just received a text. I sent out a push notification for everyone that downloaded the SOS app.
Yeah.
You go on Android, Android, iOS, Amazon App Store, and just search Supernatural Occurrence Studies. We have our own app. And I usually send out push notifications letting people know when we're going on air, when to expect a podcast, other little tidbits. So I encourage everyone. It's free. Go ahead and download it. Just search Supernatural Occurrence Studies.
It gives something Jay to do,
It gives me something to do. But I just got a text from a listener. This is the first text that a listener sent through.
Nice.
I sent
somebody you recognize or just completely random?
No, it's completely random. I sent out a push notification today. I know you guys have the apps. I don't know if you saw it, but they're asking what happened to the weapons. What happened to the weapons. I'm assuming they're talking about the weapons that the killers used during the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. Actually happened, that's like a perfect setup.
Oh, he's planning a murder and he sent you the wrong text. And
wait, where'd you hide those weapons?
Yeah. And the other text is like, what ghosts are you talking about?
It's actually interesting because, for a long time it was this great big mystery. What happened to the St. Valentine's Day weapons? They had ballistics. They had people they thought were the killers based on ballistics and things. But later on in history, the weapons believed to be from the St. Valentine's Day Massacre are actually now held at the Berrien County Sheriff's Department Armory in St. Joseph, Michigan. 10 months after the massacre in St. Joseph, Michigan, an officer named Charles Skelly stopped a motorist for a minor traffic violation.
Charles Skelly?
Skelly. Yep.
I wonder if that has an origin for the X-Files character.
That's why the first thing I thought of.
Yeah.
Now that the new X-Files are out.
Yeah, it's Skelly, Skelly.
Very close to Skelly.
So the murderer, the motorist that Skelly pulled over, turned out to be Fred Killer Burke, one of the supposed massacre shooters. And afraid of being hung...
Who was the supposed shooter that was killed in the bowling alley with the Valentine's Day card?
I'll get to that. I have that too. I love this stuff. I love Gangland Chicago. From
really?
Bridgeport.
You could have fooled me.
From Bridgeport, I was surrounded by it. But Fred Killer Burke was the one that was pulled over by Skelly. And afraid of being hung up for the killings back in Chicago, Burke shot the officer 3 times. And before succumbing to the shots, the officer was able to identify his killer as Fred Killer Burke. Shortly thereafter, Burke's home was raided.
Fred Killer Burke doesn't really have any defense when his name is Fred Killer
yeah,
Burke.
I mean, how do you, Your Honor? What do you want from me? My
it's pronounced Killer. I'm sorry, it's been wrong this whole time.
But shortly after the shooting, Burke's home was raided, and some of the Valentine's Day Massacre weapons were found locked in a closet. 2 Tommy guns, Thompson submachine guns. One was fully assembled, locked, loaded, ready to go, and one was in the notorious black suitcase that you always see in the movies.
Yeah.
They recovered 2 high-powered rifles, a sawed-off shotgun, and countless rounds. And the 2 Tommy guns that are in the Berrien
nowadays
County
that would just be considered like a regular old tea partier.
Yeah. And
I have permits, officers.
The Tommy guns that are being held at the Berrien County Sheriff's Department Armory in St. Joseph, Michigan, they actually tour NRA circuits. And
wow.
The sheriff, they're like the head sheriff or whatever, he takes the submachine guns.
You're kidding me.
And he shows these at NRA events, and people are like, wow, those are like the ones used in this. He tells a story, he's like, oh, those are the ones that are kind of like the ones that were used. He's like, no, these are ones that were used. So to answer that listener's question, 2 of the submachine guns that were proven to be from the massacre through ballistics. This was one of the first cases in history where ballistics were used.
Yeah, I didn't think that ballistic... John Mulaney, who's a comedian from Chicago, who's very funny, he has a joke about, like, old-time murders. And he's like, there used to be a time where, like, there'd be a murder investigation and one of the detectives would come up like, Chief, we found a pool of the killer's blood. Gross. Clean that up. Let's figure out who killed this guy.
And so I just wanted it. That was really cool. We got it, and I actually have notes on that I took earlier today. So, and just to refer to who Dave Black was just referring to, that was Machine Gun Jack McGurn. He was one of Capone's top hitmen, killed in 1936 in a bowling alley on Chicago's Milwaukee Avenue. And his killers did leave, you're absolutely right, a Valentine at his feet that read, and I quote, "You've lost your job, you've lost your dough, your jewelry and car and handsome houses, but things could still be worse, At least you haven't lost your trousers." That's what the Valentine read at the feet, that they left at the feet of a murdered Machine Gun Jack.
Did they take his pants?
They didn't. They left them. They said, "You're lucky."
I thought they were talking about something about soiling his pants, maybe, but when you die, it soils anyway, so it's not that.
But, all through history, Chicago was just loaded with these famous, flashy outfit figures. Alphonse Capone, Al Capone, the outfit kingpin, the king of kings, urban Robin Hood and villain to cops and officials, and the original, the very first, public enemy number 1. Capone opened soup kitchens, gave to the poor and loved children, all while causing bloody havoc on the streets of Chicago and raking in over $100 million annually. This is in the 20s and 30s.
Yeah.
Imagine what that is today.
He's a Rockefeller.
He was the first rock star criminal. Forget Tony Soprano. It was Al Capone.
And Tony Soprano's fake.
Yeah, he was the first rock star criminal. He loved expensive suits, silk boxers, and always had a cigar.
Yeah.
Any modern gangster cliche can be traced to Al Capone in some form, guaranteed.
But you know what? There's no iconic cartoon character named after him.
No, there isn't. Why?
Bugs Moran? Bugs Bunny?
Bugs Bunny. Good, that's right.
Yeah.
That's even why Bugs Bunny has that Chicago voice, too.
Is that who he was modeled?
And is that carrot supposed to be the
That's
cigar?
crazy.
And there's even Bugs Bunny cartoons where he's fighting with gangsters,
I remember that. You're
Yeah.
right. I have to go pull those up. But did you know...
Any excuse to watch cartoons here, really.
Did you know Scarface Capone hated the name Scarface? He actually loathed it. The press gave him that. And he got into a bar fight. He was a bouncer, an enforcer, and it cut his name. But Capone hated that. His associates actually called him Big Fellow or Snorky, S-N-O-R-K-Y, Snorky, which is just another way of saying spiffy. That's what he went by, either Big Fellow or Snorky. Capone was sent to Alcatraz in 1934 for tax evasion, not murder like a lot of people think.
Yeah.
The only thing they could get him on was tax evasion. And in Alcatraz, he fell really hard to the effects of syphilis.
Yep.
While he was in prison, he was actually treated with malaria.
He actually had syphilis since he was 18.
Yeah, yep. But he really started feeling the effects when he was
Which
getting
a lot
older.
of people
Because it
attribute
starts
to...
eating away at your brain.
Yeah, so
attribute his wild streak to that kind of thing. Is
That's
affects,
right.
Like the
The
reason
effects
he
of
was so
syphilis.
violent and so particular and so infamously strange as a gangster, I guess.
Yeah.
That it's probably the syphilis.
Isn't that crazy to
Yeah.
think back? And they treated him with malaria to try to beat the syphilis.
It's like when you find out that Van Gogh was actually like really sick when he painted those. Like he painted those photoreal for him.
Yeah.
His eyes saw that weird shit. Like to him that was reality, but in reality he had syphilis or malaria or something like that.
Wow.
He had like schizophrenia maybe, and that's why Van Gogh painted amazingly, but he was fucked up, or
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah, so the syphilis and the effects, succumbing to the effects of syphilis, it was said that Capone would scream and cry like a little girl late into the night in his cell in Alcatraz, claiming that his victims' ghosts were haunting him and taunting him. In 1939, he was released from prison and kind of really spent the rest of his days out of the spotlight at his Palm Island, Florida mansion, where he actually died pretty unassumingly on January 25th, 1947.
See, that part I didn't know. I never read anything autobiographical or whatever on on Al Capone, but I thought he died in prison, so I didn't know that.
Yeah, good.
Wow.
I mean, we had guys, again, like Frank the Enforcer Nitti. He was Capone's semi-successor after Capone passed away.
I love watching renditions of Nitty in movies.
Oh, yeah. Well,
and
Nitti, if you remember Untouchable,
crazy, badass.
Probably one of my favorite characters
And yet in the-
film.
Is that Billy
And-
Drago, right?
Billy Drago.
And then in Road to Perdition, he's like Stanley Tucci, like very business-like,
That's
not
right.
murderous.
That's right. So
I like watching the differences.
That's how Nitti. So the Stanley Tucci Nitti is kind of
Yeah.
how he really was.
I'm sure, yeah.
He was semi-successor to Capone. After Capone died,
yeah.
Nitti kind of took over. They say there was still people pulling the strings.
Power struggle, maybe?
Yeah, but Nitti was more the face. And like I said, he was more like Stanley Tucci. You said it perfectly. He was kind of quiet and bureaucratic, and he tried to get the outfit away from murder and bootlegging and into political coercion and extorting Hollywood studios.
Well, he knew his shit then because...
So wait, Kevin
A lot
Costner
of people
didn't
did
throw
that.
him off a building?
He didn't. Perfect, exactly.
No.
Billy Drago in Untouchable,
That
one
was
of
a
my favorite
badass
movies.
scene, though.
Threw him right off the Billy. Yeah, that was Frank Nitti, the enforcer. Now, he was terribly claustrophobic. A lot of people
Really?
don't realize this. And he
So that
committed
roof was really great.
he committed suicide on a set of Chicago train tracks.
Yeah.
Blew his brains out because he would rather die than go in a cell.
At least in that
because he
moment,
was so
yeah.
claustrophobic. Yep.
Yeah, that I knew.
We had John, Papa Johnny Torrio. You see Johnny
The
Torrio
pizza guy,
in
right?
in Boardwalk Empire.
Yeah,
Johnny
yeah.
Torrio.
He's a big... Yeah.
He was actually, and just like they showed in Boardwalk Empire, Torrio was the man responsible for bringing Al Capone to Chicago from Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Essentially taking Capone from a Brooklyn bouncer and low-level enforcer and making him the king of the empire that Johnny Torrio himself built.
And obviously sharing his connections and whatnot in his old age that he acquired.
Did they ever have a falling out? Like, I was never clear what was, like, legitimate on that show and what was made up.
So Torrio was murdered. That is true. But it wasn't by Al Capone. It was by some other... and it's slipping out. You called me out.
I feel like
can't
saying
remember.
something about Boardwalk Empire because they do talk about that. There's this plot against them that goes into season 5, but I don't want to talk about a show that's fictionalized and say it as truth because I don't know.
Or was Torrio the one?
Yeah, because Nucky
Nucky
Thompson wasn't even a real person. It was
he was a representation of
he
someone.
was a representative of Nucky Johnson.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Totally
but
different.
Torrio, I don't actually. Now that I'm thinking about it, I don't think he was killed. There was attempts on his life.
Yeah, there was definitely attempts.
And that's what it was. There was attempts on his life, and he was smart enough to say, you know what, I'm stepping away. Here you go.
He always knew when to step away.
Here you go,
show,
here
so
you go,
that's
big
good.
fellow. Here you go, Snorky. Here you go, Capone.
Here, take
Here's
the
the
baton.
keys to the kingdom.
Yeah.
So a lot of people think that Capone built this massive empire himself. It was actually Johnny Torrio who built it and then handed it over to Al Capone. Diamond Joe Esposito, a blackhand extortionist and bootlegger from New York's Little Italy, who grew into the Republican head of Chicago's 19th ward. And Diamond Joe was responsible for bringing Paul the Waiter Rica, Machine Gun Jack McGurn, and Frank the Enforcer Nitty into the Chicago outfit.
And now all the gangsters in Chicago are just bribing people to put up red light cameras and speed cameras.
Yeah, getting a piece of that.
How do you headhunt for gangsters? How do you start that?
It's
right?
just the old saying, I got a guy.
Can we call
I got a
Little
guy.
Italy from now on Little?
Yeah.
No.
It's sad. The Little Italy in Chicago, there was one on Harlem Avenue and one on Taylor Street in the South Side. It's not anymore. It's pretty much Little Eastern Europe.
Yeah.
Or in Harlem Avenue's case, it's Little Eastern Europe, and in Taylor Street's case, it's more like Little Gentrification. The vibe is just completely gone.
Yeah,
I grew up
it's
right
interesting
around there.
reading a book on some historical thing about Chicago. I read like 2 or 3 books, not as much as you have. But like The Devil in the White City, for example, doing that stuff, and more so before and after. And it's just so interesting driving by those places. First of all, the fact you could drive when there were horse and carriages was interesting, but also like it just feels so different. And yet you lived there I lived there the whole time.
Yeah.
Since I was born, but yeah, it's crazy.
Of course, we had George Bugs Moran, who took over the Northside Gang after Dean O'Banion's. We're kind of running out of time. So there's Dean O'Banion, who was head of the Northside Irish when he was murdered.
Dude, this turns into the podcast of gangsters. I'll talk to you all night.
George.
Man.
So after Dean O'Banion, the original head of the Northside Irish gangsters, when he was murdered, Bugs Moran took over after O'Banion's death. Bugs Moran, they say, was the originator of the drive-by shooting. Chicago thanks you for that one. And it's believed that Bugs
He was
himself.
Toohey. A guy named Toohey was the first.
George Terrible Toohey.
Yeah, he was the first drive-by shooting
Victim
of all time.
Yeah. I think
There's
I've read
there's
that.
actually
Sadly, and counting.
And counting.
There's actually a road street named after Toohey.
Yeah, after a notoriously
I used to
rough,
work on
vile
Toohey.
gangster.
Yeah.
Well, I'm
Kinda
sure
funny.
it's a family name that was important in Chicago in one way. I think they had something to do with the airport being built.
It has to be important enough also to be named. Yeah.
Now, don't forget, it's believed that Bugs Moran was the intended target of the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. He was supposed to be the 8th victim, but luckily he wasn't at the SMC garage that fateful
Well, there was
morning.
another guy that walked in that they thought he might be or was a similar build. This is one of the stories I heard is the lookouts saw a guy that looked similar to Moran, had similar clothing, similar build. It was one of the other guys that was killed that walked in.
Wow.
And then they gave the signal to, okay, Moran's there, go get him.
Man, imagine that screw up. Who answered to that one?
Right.
And of course, no story about Gangland Chicago isn't complete unless you talk about John Dillinger. The second
We
public
walked through
enemy
there.
number one in
Right,
Chicago.
yeah.
Now, contrary to popular belief, I don't know if you guys know this, Dillinger didn't have a deep-rooted Chicago connection.
Yeah, Dillinger
No.
wasn't
Indiana
really,
and shit.
Exactly.
That was
But
like a
Dillinger
lot.
wasn't really a connected mobster so much as he was just kind of
an
a loner.
outlaw. He was an outlaw.
He slung around with mobsters,
Yeah.
but yes, he was an outlaw. He was a notorious bank robber throughout the Midwest.
That's what he
although
liked to
not
do. He
in
liked different
Illinois.
kicks.
Kind of like Bonnie and Clyde. Like, they didn't really have specific affiliations.
Just Clyde.
That's right.
Yeah.
He was a notorious bank robber throughout the Midwest, but didn't commit any serious crimes or felonies in Illinois. And when I say he was notorious, like Capone, I mean he was famous,
Yeah.
rock
He
star,
loved the pictures,
movie
loved the
star,
newspaper.
famous. He was handsome. He was daring. He would steal money and give half of it to citizens.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, people loved him. They would read about
like
his
a waitress
exploits.
at a bar or a diner, he would go and just give him a bunch of money.
Exactly.
And stuff. Yeah.
People would read about Dillinger's exploits with fervor. They anticipated his next caper.
Yeah.
But his connection to Chicago is that he was killed here.
Yep.
So on a sweltering summer night in July 1934...
It's almost like we stole Indiana's mojo there. Because that's like
he's ours
clearly
now.
their man. Yeah, but he's ours now, you know?
So on a really hot summer night in July 1934, Dillinger found himself watching a movie called The Manhattan Melodrama. Mm-hmm. It's a gangster flick starring Clark Gable. And if you ever get a chance...
Not very good.
I love it. Just that era,
okay,
that time.
I guess.
Seeing Dillinger sitting there, I picture him looking at
It was
this.
during Clark Gable's waning years and in a lot of his movies.
He actually... I don't know what the big deal was. He wasn't like some big handsome dude. I don't know what it was.
He was a fucking good actor. Is what he was.
Back then, if you had like teeth and you weren't dead by 30...
You did okay. You're doing okay money-wise.
Yeah, they tailored him in a specific way. I read a book about him. Anyway, go ahead.
Nice. So there he is. There's Dillinger. He's watching the Manhattan Melodrama at a gangster flick starring Clark Gable at the Biograph Theater on Lincoln Avenue, which is now called Victory Gardens Theater. Mm-hmm. He was there because the Biograph was the only air-conditioned movie house in Chicago, and it was a really hot day. So he went at night to the only air-conditioned theater. He was there, of course, with 2 female escorts. Dillinger is notorious for having a huge penis. Yeah. So this is a history. I don't know if it's true, but
although
that's what
one
they
of
say.
them supposedly wasn't like an escort like that. It was like a sister of someone, of the girl.
Yeah, so it was Anna Sage, also called Anna Compagnas, and Polly Hamilton. Now, through some immigration stuff, the FBI got to Anna Sage, or Anna Compagnas, and they said, we're going to deport you unless you help us catch your squeeze, Public Enemy number 1, John Dillinger. Yeah. So they set up a signal with her. Anna Sage, Compagnas, was to wear a bright red dress while escorting Dillinger at the Biograph Theater. This would signal to the FBI and the waiting G-men that the man walking next to or escorting a woman in red was their guy, their number 1, Public Enemy number 1, John Dillinger. And for her involvement in this case... She's gone down in history as notorious Lady in Red. Yeah. That's what they're talking about.
And
they're
then
talking
Bolton
about
fucked it up.
Yeah, they're talking about Anna Sage. So she's the Lady in Red. Yeah. When the movie concluded, the G-men, the FBI, guns drawn, ambushed Dillinger. He tried to run. He tried to escape through an alleyway that's right next to the Biograph, or now the Victory Gardens Theater. But as he was running away, just a volley of gunfire took him down. He took a few more steps, ran, fell, and some say died in that alley right there on Lincoln Avenue. Mm-hmm. Although he didn't die there, believe it or not. He died in a hospital later. But a lot of people believe he died there.
And did he say something to the cop or something?
No.
They approached him?
Now, isn't there speculation as to whether or not it was actually Dillinger at all, because they said he didn't look this name?
There's a whole conspiracy.
Yeah. That Anna Sage, in fact, met up with somebody that looked like him or was similar to him.
There is a conspiracy theory.
The excuse was, he got plastic surgery to make his face different or whatever.
Yep. The FBI had to do something. This guy was just brazenly killing people and knocking off banks and just enjoying a rock.
And also making
life.
them look bad, which is
exactly, and that happens today.
Yeah.
Hey guys, we got to close this case, pin it on somebody.
Yeah.
Right.
If you've seen The Wire, you feel the same.
Yeah, and it happens. It used to happen all the time in the 60s, 70s, and 80s in Chicago. So
it was still happening. It's still happening in Chicago now.
I'm sure. Absolutely.
They had the black site where they would taking people and
just disappearing for months.
Yeah,
yep.
Beating them into
no lawyers, no
confessions
family,
and stuff.
no calls.
The John Burge thing, where
Chicago
is still as corrupt today, if not more so than it was 80, 90 years ago.
Yep. It's just not as flashy as it was back then.
Yeah.
Now, just to show you, kind of what a rock star status Dillinger had, some 15,000 people turned out to his funeral. Damn. It was standing room only. People were standing on cars and newspaper stands and things just to see his funeral procession.
I was actually by the Biograph Theater the night they were filming Public Enemies.
Oh, no way.
When they were filming the scene outside of the Biograph Theater.
Oh, wow.
And I actually got to see that final scene being filmed, which was similar to the actual scene of hundreds of people crowded in the street, and they had these big, phosphorus flare things for the cameras and the lights and stuff.
Yeah.
and it was just like pandemonium in the streets of all these people.
That is cool.
Swarming around and looking at looking at his body and all that kind of stuff.
Well, so this is the interesting thing. Now, Dillinger was cool. He was a gangster. He was, public enemy number one. He was sexy. But people claim that to this day, they see a shadowy figure running from the theater, from what's now Victory Gardens Theater, and falling and disappearing in the alley next to the theater there. Yeah. And a lot of people believe that this is Dillinger's ghost reenacting his final moments again and again and again and again. We've gone there. We've taken pictures.
I've never gotten
and stuff.
anything weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The alley is a creepy alley, but I think it's just one of those creepy Chicago
I think
alleys.
it's actually the restaurant next door that's got something.
The Mexican joint. That's right.
It used to be called Fiesta Mexicana. I don't know what it is now.
That's right. Because we went in there, we were talking to the owners and stuff.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. We've had tons of,
It's too bad he had to go out in that
New
movie,
York.
though.
It's all about Chicago outfit. And of course there was, we can't conclude without talking about Salvatore Giancana. Sam Giancana went by just Mooney or Momo. Boss of the Chicago outfit from 57 to 66. Who some theorize masterminded the death of Marilyn Monroe in 1962 and the Kennedy assassination in 63. Sam Giancana's influence was so far-reaching, in fact, it said he had real tight CIA connections. He was involved with Castro in Cuba and attempted hits on Castro's life because of his power and influence.
Yeah, and we hated him.
It's an injustice to try to cover Sam Giancana here in just a couple minutes, but Chicago was just loaded with these figures. And anywhere gangsters were said to lurk, as I mentioned earlier, so do the ghostly legends, and no better place than the St. Valentine's Day Massacre site.
Yeah, definitely. It's funny how we did a whole show on essentially what is like the only known photograph, and we happen to possess. But it's really I love the title history so much. This is part of the reason why I really like the show. We're doing
and why we love
history
Chicago.
Stuff. I love history.
Me too.
Love it. So yeah.
So what do you guys think?
I mean, for me, it's pretty cool, honestly.
Crickets.
But I've known all this. This is really just for the audience, right? We're sharing and whatnot.
We're sharing, yeah. And again, I encourage you guys, go and download the app. That photograph, the St. Valentine's Day Massacre photograph, is on the app. You can go and see it at sos-radio.com.
Yeah, now you have no excuse. You don't have to go on the website. It's directly. You have no excuse. Get the app. It's free. And listen and watch us. Show the stuff to you. Yeah.
Yeah.
And whoever sent that text, thank you for setting it up perfectly. I don't know if...
Yeah. On the future, it would be kind of cool if you want to give out your first name so we can call out you. You don't have to give out your full name, or we'll if your name is Dave Kowalczyk, we'll say Dave K. Or something. You know who you are.
I'm wondering if that was Johnny Darkness. I don't know, but it set it up perfectly. So
Johnny Darkness.
Contact us. We're always here. Submissions at sos-radio.com. And I guess we will, if we have any closing thoughts, Dave?
Not really.
Okay.
We covered everything.
Okay.
Watch Boardwalk Empire.
Watch Boardwalk
Pretty
Empire.
good.
Do you know I bid that as soon as the episode ended, the series ended, I was just enthralled. I loved it from the beginning. I bid, they put all these props up.
Oh, you
auction,
told me this, man. I know.
And I bid on Nucky Thompson's cufflinks in the final scene where, spoiler alert, when he was murdered by the little boy.
Yeah, the little boy from James Darmody's kid.
James Darmody's son, exactly. Yeah. When James Darmody's son came back and shot Nucky, he was wearing these specific cufflinks, and they were kind of blood spattered, and he died, right? Close.
Yep.
End scene.
Pretty badass scene.
Right? Yeah. I bid on them, and I'm like, all right, I'm willing to pay $500 for these things. They went up to like $5,000.
Yeah.
I
could have told you that too.
I didn't.
I'll see what I can do. I know some people that used to do my shows that are in Louis C.K.'s new show.
Baskets.
No.
Oh, because that's hilarious.
No, the one that's from a play.
His new show, what is it? Horace
and Pete, yeah. There you go.
Which is only available through Louis' website, but it's
like $5.
It's been getting all these accolades and stuff, but a lot of comedians that actually did my shows as few as 4 or 5 years ago are actually in that show.
Oh, wow.
I heard it's amazing. I haven't seen it yet, but I can't wait to see it.
So you're saying you could get me the cufflinks?
Louis C.K. and Steve Buscemi are the main characters.
Steve Buscemi. Oh, my God. Dave, man, I would love you for...
Actually, it's Buscemi.
Is it how you say
Buscemi?
Buscemi?
It's pronounced Buscemi.
Buscemi.
Okay. One of my favorite actors.
He's badass.
Never does
Fargo,
bad.
man. Fargo.
He's got a beautiful face.
He really does. Those teeth. I mean,
The eyes.
Can't go wrong.
He's kind of like. I feel like
He's the most successful, not great-looking leading man I've ever seen.
I feel like if you combined him and Amanda Seyfried, you would get like a Boston Terrier. It actually, like, if you put them into the pod thing from The Fly and sent them into the next pod, they would come out as a perfect representation of a Boston Terrier.
picture that, listeners.
South Boston Terrier.
And with that, we'll let the ghost of Joe Erie sign us off.
Is he dead?
All right, thanks a lot for listening, guys. If you want to contact us, you could always visit us online at www.sos-radio.com. You could email the hosts at submissions@sos-radio.com. Call us at Chicago area code 872-529-0SOS, 872-529-0767. Follow us on Twitter at Chicago Ghosts. Follow Jason, SOS-Radio, Knight, on Facebook. That's Knight, N-H-Y-T-E. Follow Jason Knight on Google+. Again, that's Knight, N-H-Y-T-E.
As always, kind listeners, keep your head up, eyes open, and question everything.
You want to save your soul from hell, arriving on our range. Cowboy, change your ways today. Oh. With us you will ride back to the devil's herd.
Can you send out pictures?
You like that icon?
Can you send out pictures of Mexican foreskins, or?
I mean, no, I can't.
I mean, 3 skins or 5 skins, but not 4.
It can only be text. I'm not ready.
You're not ready?
It's not. It's hard, actually. It's not easy to do.
It's really not that hard at all.
It kind of is.
Sometimes
we only get one
Sometimes
take.
I make up the intro in my head as I say it, and it comes out really fine, actually. But my show is a lot more loose, maybe, or more funnier. I don't know what it is. It's because you have an audience, that's why.
No mention of Mexican foreskin, please.
You know he will.
No, he can't.
Have you met Dave?
I'll just call it M4. You know, as we were speaking of earlier, the M4s that Corey has are spectacular.
Salty and chewy at the same time.
Say the first couple lines just to practice real quick.
Oh, no, I'm good.
No,
Hello, loyal listeners, and thank you for joining us on the SOS-radio.com podcast.
Chicago's own.
I didn't do the countdown.
Well, I thought you just said to talk and say a couple lines.
Oh, I thought you were
You
fucking
said that
starting.
so depressingly.
No, that
was so cute.
I was like, I didn't do it. No, it's good. That means you convinced me that you were doing it.
That's like you're talking into Bozo's dick.
I didn't.
Hold on. I hate your friends. By the way.
That your friend. He's your friend, too.
No, he's fucking not. I didn't buy him. Is it the Goosebumps or just Goosebumps?
Goosebumps.
You said the Goosebumps. I wasn't sure.
Oh, I thought you meant the movie.
No, when you said you got the Goosebumps, is it just you got Goosebumps?
I think, the Goosebumps. I got the Goosebumps.
Really?
I hate when people call it goose pimples.
No, it's like Ukraine. You don't mention the
Chicken skin?
Oh,
Fuck you.
yeah, who gives you the right? Yeah, and we were right in New Orleans before the hurricane hit. Like a week before the hurricane in New Orleans hit. David, remember?
So you should not go out on vacation, is what you're saying.
Basically. And we were on another cruise when something else happened.
Jesus
when
Christ.
Haiti got hit.
Stay away from the boats.
When Haiti got hit. Remember when
That's
Haiti
where
got
voodoo
wiped
came
out?
from. Stay
we were
away.
on a cruise like a week before. There too, horribly just out of season weather, rough waters, and then bam, Johnny Darkness.
No, it's Nightmare, you.
Shut up, you.
Dimwit. It's Nightmare.
Hey, if you're gonna open the Milanos, open them now.
Johnny Foreskins. They're
Oscar,
already
do you
open.
want some dessert?
They're open
maybe
already.
during break, you know.
Those are really. I'm serious. Talia, accidentally.
No,
flipped
they
them,
look
but
fine. It's not like I'm like,
He
oh, I
just
hate
made
upside down
them my head.
cupcakes. You know, it's okay.
You can fuck them, right?
Fucking up.
Like,
without like jumbling my
I know
words
they
or
have-
something.
They have teeth. but-
Because like I know it in my head, but I want to read it to make sure I don't miss anything, and then I start getting words
Remember, it's
and
not
what
a big
I
deal.
remember.
It's also
Those are
like
why I'm
a
afraid
a
to
little
go in the
mistake,
water.
and you just say,
I'm gonna
right now.
try not to make. I'm gonna try hard not to make it sound like
if
I'm
people
reading
can jumble a
That and
little bit on the
sturgeon scare
Oscars,
me.
you're fine.
it. No, good point.
My father showed me Jaws when I was like 3.
And then he took you on a boat.
No.
I'm not saying it explains a lot, but it explains a lot.
It looks like bear shit.
Try it. Serious. Try it.
I don't know. You know,
Why are you disrespecting?
I ate so many sweets already,
So
and I'm
what's
going to
gonna
die.
stop you
I
now?
brought this out for you guys, making me feel like I'm a bad host.
Listen, what I'm going to do is I'm going to find out where your uncle lives, and I'm going to fist him.
Is that my cocaine uncle?
Yeah, fist him right in his uncle hole.
He's always picking on my cocaine uncle. I don't know why.
What's his name? Koki Cokes?
I'm not going to say his name.
Why not?
Cocaine
Because
McCokerson.
He might be listening. Talia walked in on me today, and Katie.
That was bound to happen, by the way.
Door was locked. We lock the doors because if we don't lock the doors, Nico gets into cabinets or he loves to put his hands in the toilet. This is what my son does. So we figured we're safe. So we're having our moment. It's been like weeks because everyone gets so busy and the kids and everything. And we were on the side, the opposite side of the bed where the door is. Thankfully, because her and Nico were trying to sleep in Nico's room, just to go for a nap. Tally wanted to camp in Nico's room, and Nico wasn't going to sleep, so she was coming into the bedroom to tell us that Nico's not going to sleep.
Yeah.
And I see the rattle on the door, like, kind of start rattling. I'm like, oh, my God. And Katie doesn't hear well, so she doesn't know what's going on. So I grab her, and I throw her down to the ground, and I kneel on the ground real quick. And we have a really tall bed. Our bed, the mattress, is probably like 3.5 feet off the ground. It's huge. Thank God. So all you see is our heads poking up above the mattress and our shoulders. And I'm like, get out of here. So Katie puts a robe on and she goes running out and she goes, we were cleaning under the bed. Cleaning under the bed.
That's not convincing her.
No.
No.
And I said, Katie, the kid's not stupid. She's smart as a whip.
Yeah.
It's fucked up. It's not good.
What you should have done is been like, well, now you're going to watch how you were made. You're going to stand there and you're going to watch.
You're going to see the process. You're going to see it now.
Was that a 7, a 10? Hold up a card. Give me a hint.
No, you wanted to come in. You stand there and you watch. You take notes, and you go to school tomorrow and you tell your teacher all about it.
I want to...
Wah, wah, wah. So I felt like a really horrible parent today.
If it's any consolation, you're kind of just a terrible person all around. So, Oscar, you ever watch your parents fuck?
No.
Have you ever imagined your parents fucking?
I just realized I don't have to answer you.
I don't care what you say. I don't have to answer you for nothing. Thank you for coming over, guys, and
Are you
bringing
guys
the
leaving
delicious drinks.
All right.
We have to work in the morning.
Bunch of bullshit.
Great, because Jay won't have performance issues now. You know.
Well, you still got to think about your foreskin.
Thanks for sharing that you got walked in on as I'm touching your hands. Wonderful.
I washed, I think.
Thanks.
Are we doing 2 hours today or just no?
No, well, it'll probably be a little longer than an hour, but I don't think it'll last 2 hours.
So that means 2 hours for sure.
So now the music is playing, kind of getting in the groove.
Oh, yeah, I'm hearing that music. Yeah,
Late
sweet music.
1920s.
Yeah, totally.
Here's where you insert the machine gun.
Come and get us, coppers.